Hi everybody, it's Angela. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back, whatever. I came across a tag the other day, and I thought I would go ahead and do it. It is from the Cozy Core Craft channel. I don't know her name. It's the first time I've ever seen the channel. But she did hashtag Tarot of Exception, and it's basically tarot decks that you would never buy, but and I don't know why that keeps going through my head. The movie, he's just not that into you. At the end, he's like, "You're my exception," and because he keeps saying, there's exceptions to the rules, and then at the end he realizes she's his exception, which I think was quite beautiful. It's my favorite part of the movie, and that's why I keep watching the movie, because of that ending. But that's kind of the premise here. My personal exceptions. Now, it's funny because this is probably the fourth video that's come out that I had the idea for like 2 years ago. I've been working on a list, and then somebody else did it. But mine was a little bit different. It was exceptions to my own tarot rules, and that's how I was going to hashtag it, was exception to my tarot rules. My exception was, I only had like 3, and I've been working on it for 2 years. So it tells you how dedicated I was to the tag that I was trying to create. But my exceptions were a little bit different. Like, okay, I'm just going to show you the one. The exception was the only Oracle deck that I've ever edged. And until recently, that has been true, because I feel like, and it's my Mystical Shaman Oracle card deck. And I just feel like that's true because I actually got into, I edged it in this, in a, what do you call it? A distressed ink. This is not the same color, but this was Rusty Hinge, and it came out beautiful with the colors. And it shuffles amazing. This deck is only pulled out specifically for ancestor work. So I don't pull it out that often, because when I do have ancestor work, it's wow. This is one of the first, after I started buying Oracle decks, one of the first ones I'm like, I need that in my life. And I spent probably the most money on, other than indie decks, now, because I have a lot more. But, this is the only deck that I ever felt the need to edge that's an Oracle deck. I feel and I think it's just because I connected with Oracle first, even though I bought Tarot first. I felt that it was unfinished because the side edges were stark white, and I'm like, why? Everything about this deck is dark. And I edged it in this color, and I've not regretted it. It's beautiful. I love this deck. But that's the only Oracle deck that I have ever edged. Ever. Well, until recently, I edged the Earth, Air, Fire, Water affirmation cards. But other than that, I mean, you could say this is the only Oracle because this is an Oracle and those are affirmations. So technically, this is the only Oracle deck I've ever edged. That's not to say I have a few that I wouldn't mind edging, but it just feels more sacred to me for some reason, Oracle decks do. And that could be because I bonded with Oracle first. But I just don't feel the need to, I feel like I'm almost like desecrating the deck if I do that. Don't know why, but it's only with Oracle because I've edged lots and lots of tarot. But it's weird. So that was the one that I was going to do. That was kind of the premise of the tag I was going to set up was, exceptions to my own rules, but this is just exceptions. This is like, you don't like this, but you bought this deck despite that. So that's what we're doing here. So my first one is, and I've seen a lot of videos on this. It's kind of blown up here the last few days. And I've actually took a few from other people because I'm like, I can't think of nothing. On the spot, I couldn't think of nothing. And oh my gosh, I've tried this so tight. It's not going to come up. There it goes. But I bought this cute little deck or a pouch for it. It's nice and velvety. The first one I have is Anthropomorphic Animals. This is my Soul Cats Tarot. I am in love with this deck. I adore it. It's kind of gotten a few cards ruined because of my cat. So I'm gonna have to probably rebuy. I keep meaning to contact Llewellyn and see if they can just send me those cards. But yeah, like that one is bubbled up. Yeah, he played with it and then peed on it. So there's quite a bit of cards that have like rips and stuff on them. So I may have to just buy the deck again, which sucks because I have the book and the box and it comes in a huge thing because it's Llewellyn. But I adore this deck and I don't understand how it was where it was at when he got a hold of it. I really don't, because I usually keep this put up. It wasn't for some reason. And I just find it ironic that he messed up the cat deck because he's a cat. But things like this, I cannot stand in decks. Animals that are dressed like humans or have human hands. I don't have any decks, I don't think, where there's an animal with human hands or human body. This is the closest I get to that. And I have another one where he's in, like there's a squirrel with, yeah, like, I can't find it. This has very few, where the cats are dressed up or whatever, which is probably why this deck is acceptable to me. Versus not acceptable, because I don't have any decks where they're like I really wanted the one by Chris Ann. I just can't. I prefer the backs over the cards. I just can't. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I'm trying to look for the main one here, and he's wearing armor. But I think that is telling of the card itself, like what he represents. Like here, he's in the boat. There, he's wearing boots and a coat. That's the most. Despite that, I adore and love this deck. It's one of my probably top 20 favorite decks ever. So yeah, that's the first one. I don't do decks with animals dressed as humans or none of that. I can't. Number 2 is borders. I have very few decks. I have quite a few decks with borders. However, most of them have been either chopped off or, chopped off, or I just don't use the deck. This is one of my few exceptions. And the first deck I ever bought where I didn't even really pay attention to the borders, and that's my Encore Tarot by Tarot Marchetti. This is my favorite of his. I have several of his decks. It's edged in red, glorious red, and it's not as beat up on the edges as it looks. It has borders on the backs and then borders on the fronts. I don't mind these borders because they're color coded too. This is a major, is gray, coins are green, wands are red. Love her dress. Cups are this fall yellow color. Swords are blue. And the artwork is so stunning that I never even paid attention to the look at that. That's my favorite main card ever. I mean, come on. Never paid attention to the borders. They never really bother me. It's a stunning deck, and I adore it. It's one of my top 5 favorite. It's my 3rd favorite deck ever, behind Lightseers and Bonestone and Earthflush Tarot, which are both borderless. But yeah, this is, and it's funny because 2 of these decks are in my top 5, which is ironic because they have exceptions. So that was my borders exception. Then I have cutesy decks. I have maybe 3 total cutesy decks. This one is a cutesy deck. until you start reading with it. And then you're like, oh my God. It is the Mystical Medleys by Liminal 11. Bottom comes out. It is very cartoony. And I think that's why I can handle them dressed up like she looks like a person. Not some kind of weird animal. Which is another, we just went over that exception. I love the cardstock in this. It's very nice and matte. Beautiful backs. This deck is super cutesy, and then you get cards like this where the Eight of Swords, it's almost like she's gotten comfortable in this position she doesn't belong in. And I'm like, what? And then I started looking at other cards in here, and I went down a whole rabbit hole. Long story short, this is my childhood trauma deck. It may be cutesy and fun to look at, but it is deep. It is heavy. It will get you to where you need to go with your childhood trauma and pull it out very gently. But yeah, like the Five of Wands here, I always see the Five of Wands. It's my Forever Stalker card. I see it as a card of competition with self, and that is exactly what I get out of this card. So anyway, it's yeah, I've done a couple childhood trauma spreads with it. It's phenomenal. But this is the exception because it maybe look cutesy, but it packs a punch. And it's exactly what I needed in a childhood trauma deck, because I never would have. I'm like, oh, because I got sucked in to the cutesy cuteness of it. And then all of a sudden all this stuff started coming out. I'm like, oh. So it's exactly what I needed for a childhood trauma deck, is something that appears to be cutesy, but does the job and does it phenomenally well. So yeah, that's my cutesy exception. So we have not my aesthetic. Decks that I had no intention of buying at all. And somehow it wound up in my collection anyway. And I was like, oh my God, when I got it. That is, and I made a pouch for it because it deserves its own pouch. The Marielle. This is the second edition, the mass market edition. I had taken this deck was on and off my list for ever. And then I was like, you know what? I'm never going to work with this deck. Never going to use it. Never. I'm just taking it off my list. And as soon as I took it off my list, someone told me to buy it. I had an overwhelming need to buy this deck. And so I bought it. As soon as I started working with it, I'm like, oh my God, this is why. This deck is my grandmother, the one that passed last February. And I've talked about this deck many times. The reason why I was so adamant all of a sudden right after she passed, it was literally within a couple weeks of her passing. I think this was the first deck I bought after she passed. And it was like this overwhelming hunger to buy this specific deck. And I'm like, why? And then I got it, and I realized she was the one prompting me to buy this deck, because not only is it healing ancestor familial trauma for me, but it's healing her trauma as well. And so every time I get this out, I know it's my grandmother. This is my grandmother's deck. This is her healing her trauma, her not being able to pursue her dreams and likes and wants in her life. And in a sense, it's healing my trauma in the present. Her past is my healing. Like, it's almost like we're simultaneously, and I love this tip disc. We're simultaneously healing what was broken, and now going forward is me, the future going forward, if that makes any sense. But this is so nothing I would have ever bought, ever. Like, It was on my list for a long time just because I felt like, oh, everybody needs this deck. It's a staple deck. And I'm like, I don't need a staple deck. I don't need this deck. And as soon as I took it off my list, she passed away. Within a week or so, I had bought the deck because it was like she was forcing my hand. Like, no, you need it. It's mine. I need you to buy it for me. And so that is my aesthetic exception. And again, the only time I get this out is when I know she's present and she's wanting to use the deck. So that's it. Okay. So that's not it, but we're getting close. So that was not my aesthetic. Now, limited color palette. Now, I will say I have very few, maybe 2 or 3 decks that have 4 or less colors in each card. I'm not saying black and white because that to me is a whole other thing. I have only 3 black and white decks. That's not intentional. That's just the 3 I was drawn to. But I would buy more if I was drawn to them. I love black and white decks. This is decks that I don't like decks with a limited color palette. And like I said, I only have like 3 or 4, but this one is the total exception. It is the Fire Dwarf Pavlov Tarot. Everything about this screams indie, and it's not. Hardback book, gilded. I don't know what cardstock it is, but it's fantastic. Shuffles like butter. It's amazing. These are the backs. I actually adore the limited color palette in this deck. I actually, when I pull a card and I see like, okay, here they're wearing a robe or a long scarf. Why is that specific thing that color? I went down a rabbit hole with this. Despite the fact that the cards are stunning. They're gorgeous and I love this deck. Love it. I don't hardly use it because I feel like it's precious to me. Even though it's a mass market deck. I mean, it used to be indie, but it's mass market now. But it's stunning. And I love it to freaking pieces. But it is the limited color palette exception I have because that I use more than the others. Because it's just stunning. It's beautiful. And I love it. So that is the limited color palette exception. Okay. I'm almost out. Okay, so the next one is RWS Clone. If you have seen my channel for any amount of time, you would know it's the 2.0 tarot just because it's stunning. I love it. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. And I'm going to just go through it real quick because, yeah, the colors are amazing. And this actually did send me down kind of a rabbit hole because I was loath to buy RWS decks until this deck entered my life. And now I have like 7. So, yeah. Next, large cards. I hate large cards. This one was trimmed down. I trimmed it and edged it. It's stunning. It's the Gaian Tarot. Even though it's still large, I love this deck. Love it. I literally bought this for the sole purpose of just having a project to trim and edge. And then I started working with it a little bit. And I'm like, oh my God. It is stunning. And I freaking love it. 2 freaking pieces. Probably one of my top, in my top 20 also. Maybe even top 10. Gorgeous. Last one is my deck. And this was actually in my last, my original thing I was going to do. It is the Stretch Tarot. Stretch Tarot by J.E. Stretch. This is the one that I got from him. I also have the new linen edition from Make Plain Cards. But this is the deck I don't riffle shuffle. I can't riffle shuffle because I'd probably break the cards because they're so thick. Another exception for this deck is the only indie deck I've ever edged. It was stark white edges, and I'm like, why? They're all blue and darker colors. It should have been edged. But I edged it in this navy blue, and it came out perfect. This is my number 4 deck ever. Like, top 4 deck. It's right behind the Encore Tarot. I've used this for mediumship readings. I've used it for ancestor work. I've used it for past life work. It is the ultimate workhorse deck for me, and I love it. Yeah, and it's the only indie deck I've ever edged also. Because I feel like I spent so much money on the indie decks, what I would not want to change them or alter them. And if I messed up on the deck, I'd be so mad at myself. But yeah, this is my last deck in this prompt. I love that it has keywords. I don't really have a whole lot of tarot decks with keywords. This is also an exception for me. I love the keywords in it. It's just, this is the exception deck, pretty much. Like, anything I have issues with, it has quite a few flaws, but I look past them because it's a fantastic reader. Yeah. And it's my number 4 deck ever, which tells you some things you just have exceptions for. So that is my hashtag tarot of exception decks. I don't have any more. I probably will do this in a minor or a oracle decks as well, because we just did all tarot here and I had quite a bit, so I didn't want to overwhelm everybody and have this video be 40 hours long. So that's my tarot of exceptions. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to comment below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification button so you're alerted to any future videos. And y'all have a good night.